It was a dark and stormy night when you walked into the office. The raindrops rhythmically pelted the window as I motioned for you to take a seat by the fire. Pouring myself a glass of cheap whiskey, I take a deep breath before saying, "I knew you'd come. Let me tell you a story." The time the detective made me cry. r/D&D stories, posted by Gwyndion1. A few months ago, I was a player in a fate-accelerated sci-fi campaign set in a universe of the GM's own creation. It was a mix of cyberpunk with space opera and was a lot of fun. Now, before I get into the story, some context is required. It was a fairly big party that included my character, which was an old decommissioned android named Ava 3307, a short human infiltrator type named Icelander, a scientist named Clark, a lizard folk pilot named Kepsek, another android named Nitrogen, and finally a human detective with a somewhat seedy past named Jack. Now this ragtag group has been going pretty strong for a few sessions, with all our characters becoming closer except for Jack. He was only really close with Ava as they'd had a kind of father-daughter relationship before getting swept up with the rest of the group. Now Jack's player played him as a quiet, likable yet somewhat troubled person who rarely opened up about anything unless it was in the presence of someone he trusted. He had told my character he'd had a family and daughter before all this, and that something had happened, and they were now gone. But that's really all anyone knew about him. Well, that is until one session. So the session started pretty normal, with the group decided on a place to go and beginning to jump there. But something odd happened when Jack heard the name of the planet we were going to. A dark cloud seemed to come over him, and he became even quieter than normal. Ava and Nitrogen tried to question him, but he brushed past them and went to lock himself into his cabin with a somewhat hollow look in his eyes. Most of the party didn't think much about it, but Ava and Nitrogen were both really concerned. So when we landed and Jack left without so much as a word, both Ava and Nitrogen followed him. We tracked him for about half a day, and when we found him, he was sitting on the floor of an abandoned house with a half-empty bottle of whiskey in one hand and a picture of his family in the other. Ava quickly put two and two together and realized that this was Jack's old home. When we tried to approach Jack, he lashed out at us in a drunken rage and quickly ran off. We quickly ran off to follow, and then contacted the rest of the party to tell them what was going on and to meet us as soon as possible. We spent most of the session running after Jack as he began what could only be described as a rampage through the city. Each time we thought we caught up to Jack, we find another dead body. As this session went on, we began to piece together that Jack was going after and killing members of the city's mafia. It was all leading to this one politician somewhere in the city. We eventually caught up with Jack in this politician's mansion. It had begun to rain as we approached the gate. All we could see were dead bodies littering the ground. Most of us stepped into the house while Clark took watch from a nearby building. We found Jack in the politician's office. He was standing with his pistol pointed at this politician's chest. There were two other men in the room that had their guns trained on Jack. "Do you remember me?" Jack spoke in a low growl. The politician looked very confused. I don't think I do, sir. Now, if you could please put down the gun," he responded in a clearly panicked voice. Jack's face twisted into a mask of anger and grief. "You don't even remember them, do you? You don't even remember having them killed." And before the politician could respond, Jack leaped at him, and they went crashing through a window behind them. A firefight quickly broke out as the guards opened fire on us, and Jack struggled outside in the rain. Eventually, with enough fire, the guards went down, and Ava was able to follow Jack through the window. What she saw was Jack standing up and the politician on the ground, with a bullet hole in his head. Jack looked sad as he turned towards Ava and fell onto his knees. "It's finally done, Ave," he said, calling Ava by her nickname. I killed the bastard that took them from me, he said before holding his pistol out for Ava to take. Now, I just want to die. Out of character, a lot of us began to tear up as Ava began to plead. Wait, Jack. Please no. We're here for you. You could keep going. But Jack cut her off. Ava, this was all I had left to live. Now that it's done, there's nothing for me. Ava's voice trembled as she picked up the pistol. What about me? She asked, and Jack looked at her. I love you, Ave, but you can never replace my daughter, he said before closing his eyes. Ava began to cry as much as she could as she brought the pistol to Jack's forehead. She whispered, Goodbye, Jack, before pulling the trigger. The detective's lifeless body fell to the ground, and Ava collapsed to her knees crying as rain began to fall. With that, the DM ended the session. After session, all we could do was cry and talk. It was revealed to us that long ago the politician, who was also the head of the local mafia, had Jack's family killed due to Jack getting close to discovering his illegal activities. Now that sci-fi campaign continued after that, but that session became the emotional highlight of the campaign. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed my story. You know that old saying? Before you embark on a journey of revenge, you better dig 2 graves. And that's our story. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button for more future content. Also, if you would kindly follow the socials posted in the description, that would be amazing. As always, be good, be great, be awesome.